Okay.
Hello.
Hi. This is exciting because we're going to talk about comedy songs, and as a writer, I'm sure you all are too, I'm fascinated to know how everybody gets into this thing, because it's, I think, one of the harder things to do. Drama is easy and comedy's hard, I think. Could you, first of all, I love the fact that you've written a show called Bromance the Dudesicle, everyone. The Dudesicle.
It's actually our most serious piece.
Yeah.
Hard-hitting expose on masculinity in America.
Great. And that's going to be your first song tonight, a song called Heartburn.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Can you set that up for us?
Sure. So, Bromance the Dudesicle, as the title suggests, is about a group of friends, dudes, who sort of go on a lot of crazy adventures and teach a new guy the ways of being a bro. And this song happens late in the show after a lot of things have gone wrong. And the character Harry is singing it. He has always been sort of the loving sidekick, never quite gets his moment in the sun, and is always sort of made fun of. He really likes food.
Really likes food.
That's it. So we have Will Schuler, who's going to play piano for us.
Great.
And Damon Gravina, who's going to sing for us.
Excellent.
Those wings, or the fish and chips that I can't shake, the onion rings, the fried zucchini, or that monstrous T-bone steak. I've got heartburn. I've got heartburn. So what am I supposed to do with my heartburn? And a Zantac or 3, chugging milk of magnesia, still no relief. Chewing bullets and tums till I can't feel my gums, but the ache just gets stronger. Could it be something more than gastroesophageal reflux disease? Is this pain in my core really a longing that has brought me to my knees? I've got heartburn for you. I've got heartburn. So what am I supposed to do with my heartburn for you? I've got heartburn. Heartburn. Oh yeah. I'm in pain 'cause I have no friends. No, seriously, ow, ow, ow. This is really uncomfortable. Is it psychological or gastrointestinal? I don't know. But I've got heartburn for you. I've got heartburn for you. I've got heartburn for you. I've got heartburn.
Gastrointestinal. Very funny word. And I love that you were able to set words like that. I mean, that's sort of like, kind of like the coin of the realm. If you can get a funny word like that, and or words, I mean, it brings out the detail of the character's situation. So I love that. Can you back up before we get to this song in particular? Can we back up and tell everyone what you do in the collaboration? What are your jobs?
Yeah, it ebbs and flows a tiny bit, but 99% of the time, I write the book, Kai writes the music, and we share lyric credit.
Okay, yeah.
We find that actually helps, I think, in your process. You were talking about keywords or sentiment or whatever it is. There are so many moving parts that it helps to be able to share that and bounce that off each other.
Absolutely, yeah, in collaborating on the lyrics. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Do you recall how you started writing this particular song? Was there anything that sparked this song?
I mean, many songs in Bromance in general. Bromance, the entire show, sort of came from an actual evening, like at St. Patrick's Day, where I was hanging out with a friend who got very drunk and acted like an idiot, like a bro, and sort of like met this other guy because he stole his beer, and then they like had this hysterical like, oh my god, you're the coolest dude I've ever met in my life, like, like you're never gonna call me, like, are you gonna be my friend, you know, like this whole thing. And so I literally just texted Kyle that night and I was like, I think I found like a musical, and he thought I was insane. And then so we started writing a song or two for it just to sort of test it out. Did it in a concert and people loved it. It's actually like our most popular song we've ever written. And so a lot of the ideas initially for Bromance came out of like just funny sort of concepts and situations, right? So we knew
in the bro realm.
we knew that Harry was obsessed with food and was made fun of for this throughout. So we sort of knew at the crisis point, like, he's kind of got to sing a song called Heartburn, right? Like, I mean, which maybe isn't like the greatest way to explain it, but it's sort of like there was like an inevitability about a number of things in Bromance in our minds. This being one of them.
But I think you can also say that this is made sweeter by the setup, which is his fun song from the first half of the show is called Chili Cheese Fries. And celebrating, we're going to get chili cheese fries at 11:45 on a Tuesday night. So it's a rally cry that's so great that when the friendship falls apart, of course he'd be lamenting over something that is the effect of too much indulgence in fried food.
Yes.
And friendship.
And friendship, yeah, that's right.
French fries and friendship.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my god, we didn't even know we did that. Finding something new every day, apparently.
Yeah, well, yeah, you just have to get out there and start doing it, and these connections occur, right? Okay, great. I mean, I think one thing that's really successful about it is how seriously the character takes the situation at the start of the song. It's like, I think there are people, you could approach a comedy song in the waka waka fashion, I'm going to call it, meaning you feel like you have to write joke, 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 and then there's this approach, which I think is the way I come at it too, is you find a character who's in a situation that is inherently funny, but the character doesn't know it's funny. The character just is being himself and living out the details and the throes of what he's in, like Pepsi AC, and you know, and all those things that accumulate in your song, like, make us laugh.
Absolutely,
Right.
and I think that, yeah, we don't think of ourselves as joke writers at all. We think of ourselves, as creating situations and characters out of which comedy ensues. And I think that even, especially with Bromance, and maybe even, I don't know if you're in town, felt that like the expectation from the title Bromance, the Dude School, is like, it might be ridiculous. It might
Right.
not have any substance. And so how do you keep the comedy and fulfill that for people who are expecting the comedy, but also give heart and soul And a song like Heartburn is a fun example of, I mean, you actually feel bad for him. I hope you feel
Right,
but,
right.
you know, I mean, if you see the show. But, like, he is in a ridiculous situation, but he cares so much about it. And
Right.
that's the source of the humor, but also the source of the pathos, which I think is important in a musical if it's going to be successful.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. Let's go on to. Can we talk about how you guys? Say you're writing that song. Do you guys have a routine? Do you get in the same room, or how does that work?
Well, I think if we're talking about, so Michael and I have really enjoyed the process of writing full shows, and we think about songs in context, and sometimes that's bad because you go, oh, is this a good enough standalone? But usually, if we take it all the way back, we're thinking about the story that we're trying to tell, the moments where song makes sense, the context, and then the content for each of those songs, and gradually chip away at it until we get to where we are. So I think once we get to this stage, usually Michael has come up with some cool concept, and
Yeah.
I see something shiny and run with it for melody. You know, I go, oh yeah, okay. And so
That being a lyric phrase or a bit of dialogue or something?
I mean, it changes a little bit. I think the most common version, I guess, would be that I'll write a draft, which is really prosy, which is not me trying to like write the lyrics yet.
Yeah.
He'll take it and sort of find some inspiration, and then then the third one is when we're together, sort of going, how do we really make this lyrics and music?
strangling, throwing punches,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yes.
whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And that's the most common, but we've written some side by side, and we've written some not in the same room. Actually, I don't know if we've ever written anything
Well,
really successfully not
some
in the
I
same
cleave
room.
more wholly to what you send me.
Sure.
I think it's maybe sometimes harder with comedy songs because rhyme and comedy seem to go hand in hand a
Yes.
bit.
Yeah.
So if we're doing something really lush, then I can be a bit more freeform with placing a lyric in a melody line. But there have been times when it'll just be, hey, how's this? And I'll go, exactly as is, let's do it.
Mhm.
Or I'll rip it to shreds and the skeleton is what remains. But it's good.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that sounds familiar to me too. I'm looking for like that if it's dialogue, I'm looking for that phrase that could become the title of the song. And maybe as you read the title, and if you're the composer, a melody occurs to you, maybe on a good day, right? I mean, the words sing themselves. Do you guys, when you're working on a comedy song like this, do you find that you have disagreements about what is funny and what is not funny?
No, there have been certain instances. I think the best one is from the song that Michael was talking about that kind of started bromance. There was a phrase that was, he doesn't even like me, or we met on St. Patrick's Day, but it doesn't even. But I said, I'm not even Irish. It doesn't even matter. And he's like, no, you have to flip it. You have to land on, I'm not even Irish. And like in my mindset, I was like, it's cute, but it's much better if it's like, it doesn't even matter. I'm not even Irish. Like it just lends itself to be the second beat.
Yeah.
So I do think that the timing is something that you get, that you have to finesse to get just right. With
Sure.
delivery.
And
Sorry.
yeah.
No. I think we disagree about many things, but I feel like generally what is funny is not what we're disagreeing about. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
I think we have a similar sense of humor. I think we will definitely.
No, I think it's true.
I mean, I definitely think there's times when we'll both say, "Oh, we didn't make it funny enough. We need to like figure out how to be funnier."
Yes.
But not usually times where one person's like, "That's hysterical," and the other person's like, "No way." You know?
Okay.
I will say sometimes we have the argument over what's too intellectual and what's too plebeian. So, and it's too simple to say, like, Michael's the intellectual and I'm the common man. But, you know, we may go, and like, nobody cares about, you know, a Greek tragedy here. They want to hear, ha-ha. And we have to, like, kind of figure out the right way to make it the right kind of smart and the right kind of approachable and, you know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I feel like I've got that in my collaboration, too. We're trying to figure out how to be, like, just like you said, smart enough but emotional enough or appealing enough, right?
Yes.
Once you've gotten, let's say, the comedy song to the point where you both think it's hilarious, do you have experiences where you get it into a room with an audience and then it falls flat, or what has that happened?
I'm trying to think if that has happened. I know the opposite has happened, where we don't think something's funny and the audience definitely does, which is weird because you're like, wait, why are you laughing at that? But I'm trying to think. I mean,
maybe it's about levels, right? I feel like something that we are forced to battle with just because we're in a fairly small, fairly competitive, you know, industry when there's fairly little money to fly around for $50 million productions, making trade-offs and saying, every minute is precious. Is this getting us as much as we need it to, both from story and from, like, you know, knock it out of the park, or the right type of, you know, rest from those bigger moments?
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm sure there have been. I feel like in Pumped, which is a show that we were commissioned to write, and we've thrown out many songs. Like, I'm sure there are some that that we sort of went in being like, oh, this is going to be really funny in this moment, and even if it was maybe somewhat funny, it wasn't appropriate or something. You know what I mean? Like, didn't quite like fill the need of the moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
And those are the toughest to lose, because you're like, oh, it's so good for these 4 minutes, it just doesn't make sense in the show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But luckily, I can't really think of a time when we were like, we are the funniest aces in the world, and everybody else was like, you guys are not funny in this life. So that's good, I think.
That is good.
I'm sure it has happened, just no one told us.
Perhaps. And I love what you said before, that you come up with something that you think is not funny, but in the room with the audience, it is funny. I think those are great discoveries. And it's like, you know, we lead solitary lives as writers, you know, singly or in collaborations, and once you get in front of the living thing that's called the audience, then things change, and that's, I think it's a great thing about theater. You learn what is funny that you didn't think so, right? I'd love to hear another one.
Yeah.
Shall we set up the song called "Welcome to My Sleepover Party"?
So after all of our talk
Not
about
from
how,
romance.
yeah, you know, all of our talk about how it's character first. This is a standalone song, not for a show. This was a song we wrote for a concert we did a couple weeks ago at 54 Below, which was a late night concert, and they asked us if we do a show and said, how about 11:30 at night? And we were like, I said, well, I'm usually asleep at that time, so if we're going to do it, we sort of have to wear our pajamas. And then out of that, decided like we would make the whole night a sleepover party. It was weird, strange, and we thought, well, let's go to a classy joint and make it not classy. So we were like, we have to write a song about sleepover parties, and sort of came up with, but even still, it came up with a situation for a boy who is planning a sleepover party, and as you'll see, is a little nervous about how it's going to go. Then hit the jackpot, and we're lucky enough to find our next singer, Luca Padovan, who makes anything funny and charming. So we had him do the concert, and now we're like, maybe we need to write a sleepover musical. You can all help us decide that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Luca can come up and sing. So Kyle and I are also going to sing with Luca at some point.
Great.
Last week at school, all that anyone could talk about was Jimmy's party. I hear? 'Cause I wasn't there. 'Cause I wasn't invited. Some kind of oversight, I'm sure. So now I have made a plan for my own nighttime affair. It's gonna be bigger. It's gonna have 10 times the style and flair. See, I've got s'mores and apples sliced and truth or dare and poltergeist. What more could you ask for? I mean, what more could you ask for? I can hardly believe it's today. I can barely contain the urge to say, welcome to my sleepover party. Welcome to the best night of my life. If the other kids show up, well then we'll party the house down. 'Cause everyone will have an awesome time at my sleepover party. At my sleepover party.
Okay, I don't really have too many friends. Theory is tough, but this party is where loneliness ends. Researched a lot, I'm up on all the latest sleepover trends. I've invited the whole class, dear God, I hope somebody attends.
See, I convinced my mom to say girls be like my brother, 'cause he's older, though he's really dumb.
I got costume knights and wizards and a new plastic sword.
Pillow fights, free tag, and light as a feather, stiff as a board.
I've got YouTube, Vine, and Twitter, so let's video record. I mean, what more could you ask for? Finally, I'll be where I belong. Say welcome to my sleepover party. Welcome to the best night of my life.
If the other kids show up, well then we'll
Party the house down.
in an evening chock full of surprises.
Surprises, I'll be popular before the sun rises. 'Cause everyone will have an awesome time at my sleepover party.
Was my timing right?
Was my timing right?
Is everyone out of town tonight?
Is everyone out of town tonight?
Saturday the wrong day to choose.
The wrong day, the wrong
Last
day.
night
With Rosh Hashanah, with Rosh Hashanah,
I would lose that truth.
I would lose the
What
truth.
if no one shows up? What if no one shows up?
What if no one shows up? What if no one shows up?
What if no one shows up?
What if no one shows up? It's so horrible.
Welcome to my sleepover party. Yes, welcome to the worst night of my life. If no other kids show up, it'll be a catastrophic letdown. I'll be a laughing stock before the sun rises. And my heart will be broken like no other guy's. What a horrible, lonely, and miserable time.
Oh my God! Oh, somebody's here! Welcome to my sleepover party. Welcome to my best night of my life. Oh yeah!
Now that everyone showed up, we're gonna
Party the house down.
in an evening chock full of surprises.
Surprises, I'll be popular before the sun rises. 'Cause everyone will have an awesome time at my sleepover party. Now that all the news sleepover at my sleepover party.
It's cheating to bring a 9-year-old. And we were all in onesies at the concert, so.
Hilarious. And were those characters yourselves really at the concert, hoping that people would show up?
I mean,
I'm
yeah,
actually-
yes. Yes. I
It's
mean,
hard to sell tickets to an 11.
no, I mean, a lot of those jokes came out of the so it was like the day after Rosh Hashanah, the concert, and it was 11:30 night, so we were terrified no one was going to come. And there was a line that I made Kyle change tonight, but it was about our friend Shoshana, who video records everything, that she was going to video record the night. Like, so yes, there are many jokes that came out of our own fears and insecurities.
In truth, right? Yes. It's like
In fact, halfway
Excellent.
through the concert, we had a line. Michael was like, "Oh, we write a lot of songs about people who are left out of things."
yeah. Been there, yeah. Well, thanks.
Yes,
thank
thank
you so much.
Kyle Ewalt, Michael Walker, thank you. That's great. All right, now we're going to move on to another talented songwriter, Masi Asare. Welcome, Masi Asare.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
Tough to have to follow the cute, talented pitch.
Right.
Moving on.
It is tough. But I have a feeling, I love your titles. I have a feeling you're going to be just fine here. Your first song is called Don't Cross Kitty
Yes.
from Sympathy Jones.
Yes.
I love the title Sympathy Jones. That's like a spy, a thriller musical. Can you tell us about that?
It's a secret agent musical. It's not as much thriller as spoof, and we actually resisted the spoofiness and then we came to embrace it. I wrote music and lyrics for it, and my collaborator on the book, Brooke Pierce, is here in the front row.
Oh, great.
And it's a secret agent musical. And do you want me to go ahead and set up the song?
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Not to rush. So I have some notes here because there's a lot of plot in a spy musical, and I want to make sure you get it all. So Sympathy Jones is the story of a young woman who is a secretary in a spy agency in the 1960s, and she really wants to be a field agent, and she keeps asking for a promotion, and all the real spies are men, and they're very manly, and they sort of say, no, you're good at typing, you type. So she decides she has to take matters into her own hands, and she steals a top secret file and goes undercover. And she has this whole story. And her name is Sympathy Jones, so she's the star of the show. The song that we're going to do today is actually, has to do with the case that our heroine has to solve in order to save the world from imminent disaster, which ends up being a bomb that stops time. So we're going to meet our villainess in this number. Her name is Kitty Hawk. She is an Upper East Side socialite and recently divorced. And we learn in this number that she's actually the leader of the secret coalition for revenge, assassination, terrorism, counterintelligence, and heists, also known as Scratch. So, and I think I'm giving all these points here. So her ex-husband, Henry Ossel, a brilliant designer of Oslex luxury watches, recently invented a watch that grants the person who wears it eternal life, eternal youth. So she's eventually going to use this to mastermind a bomb that stops time. I'm telling you this because you might not catch all of it.
Right, she's going to use her husband's watch.
Yes, her ex-husband's
Her
watch.
okay, the technology of that
Yes.
for this.
To make an evil weapon.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So in the scene just prior, Ossel, her ex-husband, was kidnapped from his lab and spirited away. And then the scene opens and we see all of her evil minions waiting in a dark alley, led by her top henchman, TikTok, who's a, we'll just leave it at that. I don't want to give you all the details. Okay, and so they're all waiting for her to appear, and then she appears.
And so, because I'm slow about these things.
Yeah.
So this is the villain whom Sympathy Jones is
Has
going
to
to
stop.
stop,
Yes,
stop.
she's
Okay,
to
okay,
stop
okay,
her.
great.
And here is where we meet her, and we learn that she is a villain.
Oh,
I'm taking
wonderful.
terrible
Okay,
notes.
great.
I should make Brooke do this.
Okay,
There's a
good.
lot of plot. And so we have a great cast. If you guys want to start coming up and we
Yeah,
can do
yeah,
this.
great.
Jason Lafredo on piano, Sue Mathis is playing Kitty Hawk, Jordan Stanley is going to be playing Henry Ossel, and then we have Sarah Holland, Katie Ray, Tara Novi, Jam Bryce, TikTok, and Ethan Carlson in our ensemble. And I should say just one quick comment. Jordan is most of the time an evil spy. At a certain moment, he steps forward and becomes Henry Ossel, the threatening ex-husband, and then he steps back and he becomes an evil spy. Great. I think we're ready to go.
Listen up, you miserable excuses for world-renowned, highly trained, and very devious evil spies. I have a plan that is brilliant, but kind of complicated, and I'm only just getting started here, so trust me, anyone who interrupts me dies. We are gathered here on this auspicious day to launch an operation that is nefarious and technologically preposterous as they come. So if you want to live to see tomorrow, which is unlikely to happen because you're idiots, well then here's a basic rule of thumb. I'm your friend. End of quote. But if you lie to me, I swear I'll cut your throat. I'll hunt you down. You'd best take note. It's better if you don't cross kitty. Tell the line. Shut your trap. Follow orders or I'll blow you off the map. One false move. Make me snap. It's better if you don't cross kitty. Sing the pledge. I pledge allegiance to my boss, who is beautiful and wonderful and not a day past 35. I promise to uphold the evil honor of our group and do my best to stay alive. Don't be late. Bang! Don't be dead. Bang! I've got vicious pets who clamor to be fed. So don't talk back. It's like I said, it's better if you don't cross kitty. Don't cross kitty. Don't cross kitty. Bring in the prisoner. Cross kitty. Watch. I'm your wife.
Ex-wife?
Traitor! Yes, it's true. But you abandoned me, so what else could I do? But hunt you down and torture you, you foolish man, you don't.
Catherine,
Cross
I-
kitty, gag him! Oh, Richard, it's funny how all these things work out in the end. How you try to humiliate me, forcing me to haggle with your lawyers, to fight for every scrap of dignity. How you and your scientists worked over the fountain of youth into blood work, just so you could keep your little tramp beautiful. Well, I have your watch now, and I do have a plan to take the world by storm with this marvel of modern science. Take him away! She's the best. She's a star. Though her methods may be cruel and bizarre. If you screw up, don't screw up. It's horrible. It's better, it's really truly better if you don't cross kitty.
Well, it's what a delicious situation you have. You know, you've got this larger-than-life villain, and you get to introduce her. This is her first song, right? So when you spotted the song with your book writer, then what did you start with? How did you start?
Sure. It went through many, many drafts. I think there were 7 or 8 previous songs, and this was the last one that survived.
Right.
That survived.
Right.
So, and I will say, you know, there was like a bossa nova number. She was really like slinky. We're trying to find the character. That was early, and
Yeah.
then she was like doing a manic show tune, and then the number that we had for a really long time was, people loved it. It was called "Serve the Orphans," and she was hosting a fundraiser at her home to raise money, supposedly for the orphans, but it was really for her evil cause. And it was very funny, but it didn't make a lot of sense. Like everyone was kind of like, "Why are there orphans?"
Yes, right. Yeah.
So we threw that out, and there were a couple plot points like making sure that we saw Oslo be kidnapped, that we saw the watch. They sort of seize his watch in this number, and so we redid the number to kind of have her have a rousing chorus with her henchmen and get those plot points in.
Yes. Are you able to name the titles of all the discarded songs? You said one of them was "Serve the Orphans." Do you remember the other ones? To give us just a taste of
Yeah.
where you went on this journey.
Yeah, I mean, I remember some of them. There were some that Brooke took one lesson and was like, no, write it again. But
Yeah.
I think the very first one was nowadays. It was like, a woman is lucky if she can find a decent man nowadays, you know.
Yeah.
And so hard, because he ran off and left her, and so she was sort of like, woe is me. Then there was a manic show tune where she was like, I'm off to bigger and better things. That was the title, Bigger and Better Things.
She being
Yeah, Forget You, also my
forget you,
ex-husband.
forget the husband. Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
were missing a couple key plot things, so this version felt more woven into the arc of the story that we needed to tell
Yes.
at this point.
Right. Right. There's so much to accomplish. Right. Your songs have to do 2 or 3 jobs usually to stay in the show. So this is great. I mean, it's a funny song, and yet you're serving your story in the ways that you need it to.
Yeah, there was a draft that had mimes, I think. In the restaurant. That didn't last very long.
Yes.
So try to keep it on task, on story.
Right. Right. Right, right. I guess there's. I mean, yeah. The mimes sound funny. I mean, you're. I mean, right. You're going for whatever seems funny, right? And yet you have to. Right. You just said it. Stay on task. You just have to keep things moving forward. It can't just be a lark. It can't just be silly for silly's sake, right?
Which is fun, and it gets you to a certain point, but then when people see your whole show and they're like, how did they get the watch? You know, then you have to kind of go back and say, who's the orphans?
Yes. Yeah. Right. That's right. Well, it sounds from the way you described. I'm sorry. Say your name again.
Brooke.
Brooke. Brooke. From the way Masi just said that you said no thanks to a song like right away. It sounds like you've got the kind of collaboration where you're able to like just be upfront about something that's not working and.
Yeah, we're nice about it.
Yeah. Yes.
She's nice to me. I tend to be the one who's like, this is great, we're gonna have an underwater ballet in Act 2, and she's like, let's think about this.
Yeah. Right.
So. But I think on the flip side, I'm very ruthless. Like, if it doesn't work, I'm happy to just toss it, move on. You know, I don't
Yeah.
get attached.
Are there? How can I phrase this? Is Sympathy Jones? Does she get comedy songs in this show? Or?
It's a good question. I will say that the villains are the spoofiest characters, so
right.
they get more of the broad comedy. She has some fun numbers. You know, her main theme song is kind of like feels like a TV theme song, and she sort of has this, oh, here's my life in an office, but I really want to be fine. And then she gets this driving bass line and imagines what her life would be like if she was this like action hero. So she has some fun numbers, but I think that the villains get the best comedy, and they have the funniest dialogue as well.
Yeah, yeah. How did you? When you landed at this song, did you come up with the title first, or what occurred to you first about this one? Do you remember?
I was having a really hard time with this one because we were trying to get this done. We had a publication deal. We wanted to publish this show and get it out there. And we were just like on the clock, and I was like stalling. I remember I brought it into a Drama and Skill fellowship session. That I brought the mime version that I knew I had to do. So I was listening to a lot of villain songs. You know, like I went and listened to all these like Disney villain songs, and I was like,
yes.
I think we had a version that was a tango, and I was like, I think it has to be a tango. You know, and I think there's got to be a bunch of people singing back up to her, and she's got. I don't know. I don't know how we came at the title. I don't remember how I arrived at that, but I remember feeling that I got the feel of it, and the sense of her sort of like perched on a trash can in an alley, like inspecting her minions.
Yeah.
Came to me, and then came from there.
Yeah. And when you start staging the show in your mind like that, and you imagine the backup singers and the dancing, how does that help you?
That really helps me. So at the end of this number, they sort of hoist Ossel up and they're parading him around, and it has sort of a three-dimensionality, which is hard to get in the reading format. But then it feels like it has energy. You know, there's a reason for them to be sort of singing in this rousing way, and for her to be doing the dum-diddy-dums, and which Jason Lafredo, our great music director, had some great suggestions about dum-diddy-dums and the rum-pum-poos. So it's a collaborative process. Yeah.
Yes, and it's great how a musical director, because I've worked with musical directors like you too, like, yes, a good one can make things lots funnier with choral interjections, vocal arrangement. I mean, vocal arrangements can be funny, or there can be funny effects. So I'm so glad you're bringing that into it too, because you can be funnier with your collaborators pitching in ideas like that.
It wasn't actually until I actually literally wrote the trumpet line first, and I was like, you know what, she should probably sing this.
Nice.
What's the lyric? And I said, I think it's a rum pum poo.
That's great. Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of working with other people. I mean, love stories like that. Can we go on to another song here? This being called Subway Romance.
Yes.
And is this a standalone song? Okay. Can you talk about this one?
Yeah, this is a song from many years ago, so it's almost like a period piece now. But when I first moved to New York, over a decade ago, I lived in a lot of different sublets. I lived in 14 sublets in 4 years, and a lot of them were in Brooklyn and Williamsburg. And that was before Williamsburg was sort of like a hangout for Wall Street types. It was a really different landscape back then, and I rode the L train a lot. And so this is a song about riding the L train and being a little delusional at the same time.
Okay, great.
All right, so I'll just play this one. There's a boy who takes the L train at 8:45. Every morning just like clockwork, whether rain or shine. Every day across the platform, his eyes meet mine. I can feel the waves of passion to the end of the line. He's about 6'1". He wears a tie. He's so drop dead gorgeous, I could die. He has a brown suede jacket. I think he's shy. He never says good morning. Neither do I. The other day he caught me staring, though I tried to be discreet, as I watched him in the scratched up window next to my seat. In the glow of the fluorescence, my heart skipped a beat, 'cause he smiled straight at me and I thought, damn, love is sweet. I only moved here a couple months ago, but I see him every morning I know. We could be much more than a subway romance, but when all that we have is bedroom to first have, there's not much chance. Oh, no, it's not that I'm a stalker, but I'm hyper aware. He has feelings for me that he doesn't know how to share, and I wish that I could tell him how much I care, but the atmosphere's so unconducive. I don't dare. He's about 6'1". He wears a tie. He's so drop dead gorgeous, I could die. He has a brown suede jacket. I think he's shy. He never says good morning. He never says I love you. He never says a word at all. Neither do
I was feeling it in the room here, like the audience, there's this tension between what the audience knows and realizes about the character and what the character realizes about herself. And that's a lot of the humor of this, it seems. Does that seem right to you?
Sure, and tell me more. I mean, how did you thought about it?
Yeah, right. Right, I'm a nervous performer as well, so I sympathize with you. You perform it very well. It just seems like it's the humanity. Sorry, I don't mean to taking all the fun out of this by analyzing this way, but it seems like it's the humanity of someone who doesn't really, who doesn't fully understand but she knows she feels something for the guy, and it's the delight we feel in the audience, like figuring out her situation before she has, that makes it funny.
Okay.
Sorry, no, I just feel like I'm telling you stuff that you wrote it. Here's something. What leads you to write a standalone song like this? It's not going to go in a show, right? But what?
Well, I mean, I think this particular one, I mean, like I said, it was years ago, and it's kind of great to dust it up and bring it back in because, you know, I think I played it for a couple of gigs, like in the East Village, you know, singing in bars here and there, and I got a kick out of it because you know that from Bedford, if you take the L train, you know that from Bedford to First Ave is one stop, so there's one stop every day. So they got, it's sort of like an in, if you're in the in crowd, you get that extra joke. So in the East Village, they got it. So I played it sort of, not that y'all get it, but we're in Midtown. So I played it there a couple times, and then, you know, I think, I wasn't writing big shows at that time. So it was, you know, I had done a lot of children's theater, I'd written a lot of like short songs, and I was trying to grow up a little. So I think it was just sort of testing the waters, and it felt more in the musical theater realm, and then I think from there I started writing more longer shows.
Yeah, oh, great. Does anyone have a question for Masi? I realize I haven't been taking questions. Or maybe one will occur to you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, do you do music and lyrics?
Yes, I do music and lyrics.
But your collaborator?
My collaborator, Brooke, writes the book. So she's a very talented playwright, and we come up with the concept for the shows together. And so that's how we worked on Sympathy Gems. She wrote the hilarious script for that.
Right, that's great.
When you're working with Brooke, or when you worked with Brooke on this project, did you have an outline first, or what sorry, my real question is, because I'm often in this position too, what did you work from? A full book, or an outline, or something in between?
Yeah, well, first of all, I should say that I invited Brooke to come to print, but she hates these things, so but she should feel free to chime in. So we always have a very detailed outline that gets revised over time, and that's what I work from. And then Brooke often writes scenes, and then I'll steal all the best stuff from her scene and put it in a song. And that's so I think, and then sometimes if we have a scene and we want to put a song in there, we'll discuss there should be a song here, and maybe I'm not sure where to go. I may ask her for like a monologue or a little more content so that I can get inside the head of the character a little more, and then that helps when I sit down to songify that particular scene.
Yeah. When you're working on a song that you think is going to be a comedy song, what are you? Is there anything in particular that you're aiming for, or like, is there a joke that you're aiming for, or is there anything concretely funny, let's say, that you see as a guiding star out in the distance that leads you to write the full draft?
That's a great question. You know, I have to say, I was one of the advocates for this comedy theme because I had originally asked for a different theme, and I didn't finish the songs for that theme. So then I was sort of like, well, my songs aren't even that funny, but here we are in comedy. So how do I think about comedy songs? I think I liked the comments that were made previously about how it really comes from character. I think that's how I approach it. I think it's just kind of scary as a writer for me to think about, oh, I've got to hit this joke. I mean, it's hard to do that well. Some people have a gift for it. But I feel like if the characters themselves are kooky enough, the audience will come along for the ride, and the performers will find ways to make it even funnier than I imagined because they'll be in the character, and the character will take them there. So we've definitely found that. There was a really fun duet in Act 2 for Kitty Hawk and TikTok, where they are singing about how much they love each other, but really about how much they love how evil each other is. And so it's all these metaphors for evilness, and that sort of is a fun gag. But again, it comes out of the character.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a fun song. Well, great. I mean, yeah, your approach, I think, is a sensible one. I mean, because I'm just the same way. It's like having to write a joke. Just like, who can do that? Mel Brooks can do it well, right?
Yeah.
He's wonderful at that. And then there are, us mere mortals who just sort of have to make it funny with sort of the stuff we've got with a character and a situation. Any other questions for Masi? Yes.
Well, on that, I was thinking about, where does a funny song come from? And I remember reading about the fact that if you didn't know your rising sign, it was usually connected to some illness. That was how you'd be able to tell what your rising sign was.
Rising sign in zodiac?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
that, if you happen to have warts, that maybe it was because you were a Pisces. So I wrote a whole song about that. So that's where that ideas can come from.
Sure, that sounds quite funny.
Well, we have another song from you called "And That's Art."
Yes.
The show is called "I Want a Free Ride to College." And can you set this up?
Absolutely, and I'd love to invite my collaborator, Joyce. She doesn't want to come up. Nobody wants to come up. I brought these great, talented women writers in, just for the record. For this project, I actually just write lyrics, and I'm working with a great composer, Joyce Dunn, who's also here in the front row, and Brooke is doing the book. This is a reality show musical about a group of high school students on a fictitious but nevertheless hit reality TV show competing for scholarship cash. And this was an interesting process. So our Sympathy Jones piece was published a couple years ago and has had a number of productions, and it's actually really popular with high schools. So we're seeing all these high school productions of the Secret Agent show. And they throw all these kids in the cast. So you've got 20, 30 kids in the cast, and we thought this is the opposite of professional theater where they say make your cast as small as possible. So we thought, well, let's write a show for a cast of 20 and pitch it to high schools, and let's see if they run with it. So that's what we're working on. It's a lot of fun, and this number, it's, I think, maybe more in the zone of, it comes from a musical comedy. That's how we are related to the theme of comedy. It's sort of towards the end of Act 1. There are 10 finalists who are competing on this reality TV show. There were some judges, some crew members, so we have a cast of 20. And so toward the end of Act 1, there have been a number of challenges, and a number of contestants have been eliminated. And we're following our lead character, Teresa, who's going to be played by Tara Novi. She's kind of a shy, bookish girl, and she moves through the competition and sort of comes more into her own and has some tough choices to make about how cutthroat she wants to be late in the show. So this is the next challenge along the way. We've had a couple, and here we are in like 3 or 4. And there's one character named Marcus, who's played by Jordan Stanley, our previous Oslo/Spy, who is the favorite to win at this particular challenge. But Teresa gets some advice from him, and that kind of turns the odds in her favor. It's quite a long sequence. There's a music in the actual show. There's a musical number, and then there's a scene where you get to see all of their projects, from terrible spoken word and interpretive dances. And then there's a reprise for Teresa. But we're just going to do the first big introduction musical number piece of it. Great? Okay. That's right.
Hello! I'm noted middle school art teacher Pat Picasso. Yes, it's absolutely my real name. Welcome to my studio, young artists. Today's challenge is to create a work of art. Okay, let's get started. On the count of 3, you may begin. 1, 2, 3. You think you're not an artist? Yes, oh yes you are. All of us are artists, each following a star. For art is not a thing that you control, it's simply an expression of your soul. Perhaps your soul is dancing, dance without restraint. Your
self-expression. That's only like a part. Yeah, show just how you're feeling, but there's an art to art. You can't forget the audience is there, because art is an expression that you share. So take this piece of sculpture, there's stuff that it can do, because when somebody sees it, then they feel something too, like sad or psyched or mad or wide awake. See, art is a connection that you make.
Art is a connection that you make. Then you think about the people that you hope will see your work. And it's like this conversation you can start. Not just talking to your lonesome, saying something they can hear.
Like you grab your heart and rip it out, still pounding loud and clear. Yeah, it's messy
Confusing and exciting and like flying.
all this blood and guts.
And magic, that's your heartache and your passion, and that's art. Right. Almost time to show the judges all the pieces we have made. And it's like this conversation we will start.
Time to start, not just talking to your lonesome, saying something they can hear.
It's not perfect, but I really tried. And now the grand premiere is near.
Something awesome,
A feeling,
magnum opus.
yes, a joyful celebration.
How you shape a new connection,
And that's art.
Soon the contestants will be bearing their artistic souls to us. Let's see what these talented young people create.
Show your heartache,
it's not perfect.
share your passion, and that's art.
I love all the blood and guts. I mean, that was so, like, the passion of that character, like, getting out of control in the moment. It's like, it was very funny, and it's like, it's another of these things we're talking about. It's like the character sort of getting beyond himself, and it makes us laugh because he's sort of becoming so expansive, and he's a little out of control, and like, it's funny. So very nice work, and very, very nice to meet you. And anyone have a parting question for Masi before? Yes, in the back.
How would you not go for the nude model in the art class?
Oh, I sense a rewrite.
Well,
Good question.
yeah, that's
Good question. I will say, I wanted to thank the singers though, because this is the first time we ever heard any material from that show, and just like an hour basically of rehearsal, this has come together, and I'm just really thankful. So I just want to thank them.
all right.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you. Masi Asare, everyone. All right, and finally, we have the team of Michael Kooman and Chris Dimond. Please welcome them. It's a pleasure. This is a special pleasure because I got to sit down for coffee when I happened to be in Pittsburgh about 7 years ago. I got to have coffee with Chris and Michael, and at the time they were considering moving to New York, I think, right? That's what you were so we had a little chat about what it was like to be in New York, and and here you are, years later, and you've got a list of awards like as long as my arm. So congratulations. and it's such a pleasure to get to talk to you again here and to hear some of your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, good, good. Well, I mean, let me just start off by saying this. I got to, you sent me your show Danny Girl back around that time, and am I remembering correctly? Danny Girl is a show about a girl who has cancer, right?
Yes.
So imagine that. These guys were writing a show like that as one of your first efforts, and as I remember it, it had a tremendous heart, but it also had a fair amount of comedy, right?
Yes.
Am I? I mean, I don't think you have one of those songs from Danny Girl tonight, but I just wanted to start off by talking a bit about that show and how did you find comedy in cancer? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of the big challenge with the show that we knew right from the beginning that if you're going to write a musical about a 9-year-old girl with leukemia, that it can't be what people expect it to be.
Yeah.
So, we really worked hard to try and find the joy in it. And it was inspired by actual events, inspired by the life of my cousin. And if you know anyone who deals with cancer or any serious illness, the truth is that there are moments of levity. There is great joy, and I mean, I think for both of us, comedy and a lot of times comes from pain, and comedy is one way of dealing with that. So that was what we really set out to find, is that when you look at kids who are sick, there's a ton of life in them, and so that's what we really wanted to capture with that piece.
Yeah, I mean, I remember really being captivated by it, and then really delighted at how there was something to laugh about along the way. And let's move on to a song that we will hear tonight, called "Welcome to Today" from the noteworthy life of Howard Barnes. Can you set this one up?
Sure. So after a first musical about cancer, what else do you do? No, we thought for a long time, what could we do to do something that was just really fun, something sort of completely opposite of a 9-year-old girl with cancer. So we came up with the idea of a guy who wakes up to discover his life has become a musical, and he's on a quest to get out of the musical because he hates musicals. And so this song we're going to hear is the actual first number of the show. And you don't really need to know too much setup other than that Chris is going to be playing Howard Barnes, the title character, and I will be playing his neighbor. The song in the actual show ends up being like a huge group number. It starts with 2 people, and then it follows Howard on his trip to work and becomes just like an over-the-top group number with like lots of choreography and lots of light changes, and you'll just have to see and hear those in your head. Also, I'm not a super loud singer. So if I'm too soft, you can just, do what old people in church do, and you get louder.
What the hell?
Hey there, Howard. Isn't it a beautiful morning?
Who are you?
I'm your neighbor in 13F.
Have we met?
Nope, but today is a new day. Howard, all of the birds are tweeting as the butterflies flutter by.
Oh my God.
They are sending their warmest greeting. See the rainbow embrace the clear blue sky. See the bumblebee zipping, zooming.
Are you singing?
I think I know what that buzzing means. They say, look at the blossoms blooming on both of the trees that grow in Queens. Howard Day. Watch as the darkness fades to gray. There is a new world waiting to say, welcome to today.
This cannot be happening.
Hear the heart of the city beating, keeping time for the human race. Take a look at that fat guy eating, shoving bacon
the summer of '92. What a beautiful morning, Howard. None of them have exposed themselves to you. Howard, the day's beginning. The sun has arrived, it's here to stay. Howard, the world is grinning. Gideon, Gideon, welcome to today.
Any minute now, I'm going to be waking up in my own bed.
Howard, anything can happen. Howard, on this magical day. Howard, don't just sit there napping. Carpe diem, the diem away. Now you're cruising beneath Manhattan. Oh, what wonders may come to be. There's a chance that the seat you sat in wasn't covered in cement, blood, or pee. Howard, your life is starting. Don't miss this chance to seize the day. Sorrow is sweetly parting. Howard, hey, welcome to today. Is tomorrow's yesterday, but when today is tomorrow, it's tomorrow's today. You can't waste today on tomorrow's today, or on yesterday's tomorrow's yesterday. You gotta take today for today's today, before tomorrow is yesterday. And welcome to today.
The hell did I drink last night?
Let's talk about what you guys do in the collaboration. What are your jobs?
I am music and Chris is book and lyrics.
Okay. Do you ever cross over? If yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a
Yeah.
lot of back and forth, a lot
Yes.
of collaboration. We had kind of bounce ideas off each other and give each other a lot of feedback, and so yeah, there is a lot of back and forth.
And that's healthy. I mean, I remember when I first started like writing shows with other people, I thought, oh, I've got to do my job and they do their job. And as you go on, I think you find that you're sort of in it together, and like it's the cross-pollination that really leads to stuff that you'd never come up with on your own sometimes.
Definitely, especially with comedy. I mean, I think with comedy, whatever's funny works. So like we always work with the best idea in the room wins, you know. And
Yeah.
sometimes just rearranging a couple words makes something significantly more funny. It's really, it's an interesting thing. It's sometimes it's trial and error. Sometimes it just comes to you the first time.
Yeah, rearranging a couple words. That leads me to ask, how did you get the fat guy face? That was very funny. I wasn't expecting it. I think because we weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you remember?
That was pretty early on there. That was that sort of first chunk there kind of came out pretty quickly as we were sort of searching for what the song was, and there was something about somebody eating bacon that I thought was particularly amusing to lyricize, and just looking for the exact way to express that so that it landed properly right there at the end. And fat guy face happened to be the perfect alliterative phrase
Yes.
to get it to work.
Right. And we haven't really talked much about it yet, but you're right. The idea of the joke landing at the end of the musical line makes us laugh. Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, can you talk more about that? I mean, how you can point the joke. Here we're calling it a joke now. I know we're not supposed to, but
I think you can think of it as a joke because a joke has a punchline, right? And where the punchline occurs at the end of a joke. So if you kind of are translating that to musical terms, if you have a rhyming couplet, generally the joke is going to come at the second part of the rhyming couplet. It's going to be the punchline to the joke. So usually that's where jokes happen in
in a musical song.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Yes, I would, yeah. Right, you save the joke for the second line of the rhyming couplet. Absolutely, yeah, that's... And even, and even if it's not that funny a joke, it's being in that position
Yes.
will kind of suggest that it ought to be funny, right? On our bad days, that's I guess what happens. But on the good days, it actually is funny, and it's in the right position. Could you talk a little bit about the bodily fluids? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, semen,
Okay.
blood, or
Yeah,
pee.
yeah, right. Yeah.
That's the title of our memoir.
All right.
Yeah, that was another one. That took a while to get that line phrased exactly
Yes.
correctly, and I think it's another one of those things that wouldn't be funny if it weren't so true. You know, that joke plays a lot better in New York than it does anywhere else. You know, anytime you sit down in the subway, you sort of resign yourself to the fact that you're probably sitting in somebody's bodily fluids, you know? So it took us a while to get the exact kind of...
What is the line exactly?
The line is...
Now you're cruising beneath Manhattan. Oh, what wonders may come to be. There's a chance that the seat you sat in wasn't covered in semen, blood, or pee. So, yeah, it took us a while to get the sort of backhanded complimentness of that, right? Which kind of comes up a couple of times in the song to figure out, you know, for someone like the main character in this show whose worldview is kind of cynical, how to adapt that to musical theater, and so that original joke, I think the punchline was always semen, blood, or pee, but it wasn't always set up properly. It was originally something like, there's a chance that the seat you sat in might be covered in semen, blood, or, you know what I mean? Something that wasn't as funny because it wasn't the opposite. Like the humor really comes from playing the contrast of an idea that on some logical level is hopeful, you know, earlier, you know, the idea that none of the homeless people have exposed themselves to you today is a great thing, you know, to celebrate. Is kind of the joke that we discovered with this song that thematically kind of ends up playing out over the course of the story. And that's an interesting thing that we think about in comedy, like what is the game of this song? Like what, I have a hard time just thinking about how to describe it, but like the game of this song was how can we rephrase horrible things to sound positive, right? Like, also, you know, with a little sort of like semi-comic theme of like making fun of musical theater, sort of like the opening of a musical that you might think, there's like little things like that, but I would say the big thing was, although I think biggest punchlines come from that kind of game, but it's interesting that you bring up semen, blood, or pee as well, because that is the, that's for us, that's sort of an important part of the song, because for if you're writing a comedic song, generally you want the jokes to get funnier as the song goes on, and that's sort of the last expected joke place as far as we've set it up. It's the very end of the third verse, so to speak. So we wanted that to be the strongest one. Do you agree about that?
Of course, you've got to build it. You've got to make things funnier and not less funny.
Yes.
Absolutely, that's very smart. And I didn't realize it until you just said it, but you were saving these things for the ends of verses and then going into your cheery, chirpy chorus.
Totally.
Which is just sort of funny because it's grinding into the nerves of this character who doesn't want to be in a musical.
Definitely.
And just let me compliment the music too. We've been talking about the lyrics, but the music is like, it's so bouncy that you expect it to be funny in some fashion. I just want to go out on a limb and say that because music is subjective, everyone reacts differently, but I feel like the music is setting us up to laugh.
Thank you.
Wonderfully. Let's move right along. We have another song from the same musical, so I really want to make sure we have time for that. This is called "Gotta Get Out," also from the noteworthy life of Howard Barnes. Can you set this song up?
Sure, why don't you set it?
Yeah, so this occurs a little bit later in the story. It features the character of Howard, who's been, for 15 minutes or so trying to wrestle with this idea of what's happened to his life now that it's been hijacked by this musical. And this is the point where he definitively declares that he is going to get out of the musical. To this point in the show, it's important to know that he has not sung yet. He's just been hearing people sing to him. This will be the first time that we hear him sing. And to play Howard, we have the fabulous Sergi Robles. And as the song begins, he's alone on stage, and he gets hit with a bright spotlight.
God damn it, that's bright. Terrific. What? Oh, I see what's going on here. Really? You think I'm gonna stand here and suddenly start to sing? Not gonna happen. So screw that whole show tune thing. Yeah, I gotta escape somehow. Holy crap, am I singing right now? Oh, you almost got me there, didn't you? Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but my life's too normal for a musical play. Steady and stolid, and I like it that way. Rainbows and bunnies and all of that crap. Save it for some sentimental sap. I hate musicals. Damn this musical. Oh my God, I'm singing in a musical. My condition's getting worse. I gotta find a way out of this musical before the second verse. I gotta get out. Look, I know what you're trying to do. You want me to sing some big number about my hopes and my dreams. I'm sorry, I have no grand ambition deep in my soul. I strive for order, and I keep in control. I like things simple, and my life is on track. My bread is white, and my coffee black. I like Cheerios. I am Cheerios. Oh my God, this musical is terrible. Once again, this damn refrain. I swear to God, this music is unbearable. It's driving me insane. I gotta get out. There must be some little trick, some secret switch to be flipped, some way that I can escape this goddamn thing. Is there a string to be sprung? Is there a spring to be sprung? Is there a way I can leave this song unsung? I'm gonna figure it out, get to the bottom, and then I'm gonna get back my boring life again. You wanna mess with my voice? Well, here's the choice that I choose. You cannot force me to sing, 'cause I refuse. Oh, that's catchy. Shit! Jesus Christ, I hate this stupid musical, but I swear that I'll pull through. Once and for all, I will stop this musical. If it's the last thing I do, I'm gonna get out.
You'll have to see
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah. Not to pigeonhole this song, but is this a song of complaint?
I haven't really thought about it that way.
Yeah, we sort of think of it as the I Want song for the show. This is the I Want is I don't want to be in a
Yes,
musical.
yes, right.
Which made it really
Yes.
it made it really tricky. We talked about this one for a long time before we dug into it, because the essential challenge of a musical about someone who doesn't want to be in a musical is how can he sing, and sort of Like,
Yeah.
do we want him to sing? Can he sing at all? Can you get away with not having a protagonist ever sing in a musical? And so this was the way that we kind of got around that challenge to have the musical really kind of pulling the singing out of him.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great solution. Does he? Well, we'll have to see the musical. I won't ask if he sings more because that is a huge, right? That's a huge issue. The reason I asked about Song of Complaint is that it seems like a lot of comedy comes from seeing characters in a situation that they don't want to be in, and it's the complaint. It's their complaining that actually leads to some very funny, relatable comedy. But maybe I'm wrong to think that about. I mean, that's his whole character. Actually, his whole character is he doesn't want to be in this musical. So maybe I'm being too doctrinaire about that. I have a feeling.
No, I mean I don't think that's inaccurate to say. I think it's part of the fun of comedy is watching characters actively struggle against circumstances they don't want to be in and trying to reverse them. So
yeah,
I mean it's.
And I do that. I mean, that brings up an idea that I remember from BMI, the BMI workshop. That you really, it's hard to get behind characters that complain, except in comedy. Like you really don't want to write characters that have a lot of self-pity, except in comedy. It's something to laugh at, but it's hard to really get on the character's side if they're complaining.
Yes, that is an excellent point. I mean, the classic one is Adelaide's Lament from Guys and Dolls. And you're right, the BMI workshop, the famous Lehman Engel Musical Theater Workshop, hosted by Broadcast Musical Incorporated. Yes, that is a wonderful lesson. I went through that workshop as well, or I dropped out of it, sorry. But before I dropped out, that message of yes, you can't sympathize with a complaining character, but you've stated wonderfully the exception to that rule, which applies to our theme tonight. Do we have any questions for this team?
Well, I just wanted to mention there's a
Yes.
musical out there called My Life is a Musical. Do you know about it?
Well, it's I
There are 2 wild parties.
yeah. There you go. That's right. Yes.
When is this one going to be around?
Well, we just did a workshop at the National Alliance for Musical Theater last week, so we are starting some really exciting talks. I don't know, I can't say for certain when, but hopefully soon.
Oh, very good. Anyone else?
Can I
Yes.
ask a question about the song before?
Yeah.
That phrase about the fat face phrase, Did you, I think you either extended the music there or forced the lyric on purpose, is that correct?
No, actually it is the exact same rhythm.
It
And
is?
that is actually a lesson that we've learned quite well, is that you don't want to mess too much with the punchline. As in, let the punchline breathe as you would, as a stand-up comedian would. But particularly in the world of musical, if you set up a rhythm or a scansion
Right.
for a lyric, don't break it or try to mess with the punchline. Let it fall naturally. And that what you're referring to, actually there isn't. I don't think there's a change there actually.
It's just, I wasn't sure.
Mhm.
It matches another verse with the same?
Yes,
Okay. Maybe it's just the way it was delivered, which is fine.
possibly. I'm not a trained singer, so.
No, no, no.
Quite possible.
No
I'm
complaint. No, I was just curious whether musically that was a musical joke.
No, you know what? I let the lyrics be jokes. I try not to mess with the lyrics too much, because I think in a comedy song, if you're writing a comedy song, it is all about the joke, right? Everything needs to support the joke. And last thing I want to do, if he writes a really funny line, the last thing I want to do is get in the way with it. In fact, I just want to let it breathe, let it live as much as possible. And something that it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on is I think particularly in a comedy song, the composer
has a lot to do with the punchline, because you are literally, comedy's about timing, and you are literally setting the time of the joke. So I think music in a comedy song, even though it can't really get in the way of the joke, has to sort of set the timing of the joke. Do you agree, Mark?
Yes, I mean, the music needs to have led us to that place magnificently, efficiently. I mean, that is the total joy of it to me. Like, you've been able to make the music in such a way that the joke lands on those 2 or 3 or 4 notes, whatever, and it just feels like it was meant to be like that. I want to say about your reaction to Fat Face. I think my sense of it is, it's because you, in the lyric, the phrase "fat face" was already used, just 2 or 3 seconds before, and we're not expecting Fat Face to come back. That was the lyric surprise of it to me, that maybe made it seem musically different too. But I totally believe you that it's the same music. Sorry, that's my sense of why that played the way it did. We are running out of time. But let's hear this last song, which is called "If You Only Knew," from a show called Judge Jack Justice.
Yeah.
Judge Jack Justice.
Judge Jackie Justice. It's a show
is this a misprint here?
Maybe, but that's
oh,
right.
okay.
Sorry. It's going to be. It would be more appropriate because I shall be playing the Judge Jackie.
Oh, okay.
Appropriate for her to be a man. But this is a show that was commissioned by the Pittsburgh CLO. It's sort of a satire on reality television courtroom dramas, a la The People's Court and Judge Judy. It's about an aging female judge named Judge Jackie. And this song is going to be sung by her trusty bailiff, Henry, who will again be played by Sergio Robles. You'll have to imagine me to be not only a woman and a judge, but also a good actor. It's important to know that she is speaking to the plaintiff and defendant throughout this song, and not to Henry. So,
yeah, it sort of goes into fantasy a little bit.
Yeah. You know something? People wouldn't realize what a moron you were if you learned to keep your moron mouth shut. You ever heard that before? Neither did I. I just made it up. I'm going to put it on t-shirts and make $1 million. Henry, you want to buy a t-shirt?
No, Your Honor.
Right, because you're not an absolute imbecile like Romeo and Juliet over here. Love. Bah! Love will make fools of them all, Henry. Everyone but you and me.
If you only knew secrets I've been hiding, if you could see through to the truth I've kept inside. When I look at you, seductively presiding, what would you do if you only knew?
Let me tell you something, you cast off from the cast of Deliverance. On your best day, you aren't half as smart as I'll be 3 days after I'm dead.
You have got this wit that I'm utterly disarmed by. Your sarcastic laugh, it sets my heart on fire. And I must admit that I find myself quite charmed by your cynical worldview.
You want to know something about love, numbnuts? Love makes about as much sense as male nipples.
You show the world a stern and sober judge. I see the girl that they don't see. You say it takes a fool to fall in love. Well, maybe the real fool is me. If you only knew how a look from you could please me, how I truly live for that bright sardonic smile, what I wouldn't give to find out that when you tease me, you're really saying Henry, you want to quit daydreaming and get these idiots out of here? You look like a lovesick moron.
Wow. That you got to laugh so early. It's like you set up the character wonderfully, and we understand the situation. And anyway, it was compliments to you both for like making that happen. Like, how often does usually you have to get into a song a little bit. So that
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel we're out of time. Okay. Well, it's been a total joy. First, let's applaud Michael Kooman, and then also let's reapplaud Kyle Ewalt, Michael Walker, and Masi Asare. It's been so much fun listening to their songs. I hope you enjoyed yourself as much as I did. And thank you to the Dramatists Guild for sponsoring this evening where we could talk about comedy songs. Thanks.